Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are taking on a body of work that is, well, it's extremely ambitious. It doesn't just give you a few tips for better productivity. It really fundamentally challenges the operating manual that, high achievers are using to run their lives.
Right.
We are diving into Rishi's groundbreaking insights, which lay out a pretty radical path to clarity and sustainable energy in an age of just total overwhelm.
And this is such a necessary deep dive for anyone listening who feels that nagging disconnect. I mean, the core question is always the same, right?
Yeah.
Why do I feel anxious, empty, and just perpetually burned out, even though I've done everything right?
Exactly.
You got the promotion, you finished the huge project, you are, by every external measure, succeeding.
Yeah.
But that feeling of enough,
Yeah.
it just never arrives.
That feeling of never enough is the key signal. It's the check engine light. And Rishi's work argues that the foundational assumption we all operate under is it's
Flawed.
deeply flawed. We treat life like it's a puzzle to solve, or maybe a finely tuned machine to optimize. You fix the right inputs, you control all the variables, and the machine should just run smoothly.
And it should deliver happiness and fulfillment on a predictable schedule.
Right.
But if you approach your own existence or your career or your relationships with that kind of mechanical mindset, you will inevitably end up exhausted. You're just constantly fighting reality.
So what's the alternative?
The truth, according to this framework, is that life is a complex, adaptive system. It's dynamic, it's nonlinear, and here's the kicker. It's ultimately uncontrollable,
So less like a clock.
and much more like a wild, chaotic ocean.
Okay, so the mission of this deep dive then is to really unpack that essential mindset shift, moving from this rigid pursuit of control
It's exhausting.
to the dynamic practice of coordination. We need to reveal the actual actionable strategies Rishi provides for really just surviving modernity.
And the hook here, I think the reason this stuff resonates so deeply with driven people is that it gives you permission to stop blaming yourself.
Yes, that's huge.
Your anxiety is not a personal failure. It's feedback. It's a signal. You are, and this is not a metaphor, you are literally running Stone Age software.
An ancient operating system.
Right. Optimized for survival on the African savanna, and you're trying to run it in a hyper-engineered modern environment that exploits every single one of its evolutionary vulnerabilities.
And when that software meets this new environment,
It misfires wildly.
exactly. So we're going to be looking at the hard mechanisms behind that misfire. Things like why relying on willpower is basically a losing game,
Always.
how the metrics we choose to optimize so often betray our deepest needs, and how the specific evolutionary modules of your brain, what Rishi calls the 7 competing actors, are being constantly manipulated today.
By algorithms, by social media, by everything. This is really the shortcut to understanding the why behind your burnout.
Okay, so let's unpack that core realization first because it's the necessary starting point. This contrast between the rigid machine model and the dynamic ocean model. Why do we default to the machine?
Well, it's seductive, isn't it?
Yeah.
It promises predictability. The traditional success formula, which is, it's still the main narrative taught in business schools and self-help books.
Oh, absolutely.
It says, set detailed, fixed goals, create these rigid 5-year plans, and then exert total control over the whole process to guarantee the outcome you want.
And look, if you're building a bridge or assembling a clock, that is absolutely the right approach.
It's the optimal approach. But the moment you apply that level of rigidity to a human life,
Which is messy.
which is constantly interacting with billions of unpredictable variables from the global economy to your own body chemistry, it just becomes a generator of anxiety.
Because you're guaranteed to feel like you're failing. If you treat life like a straight, fixed path, you will always feel behind. Reality never, ever conforms to your 12-month spreadsheet.
Never. And every unexpected event feels like a catastrophic failure, not just a change in conditions.
So that anxiety is the friction. It's you fighting the nature of the system itself.
Right. And that's why the surfing mindset is such a powerful replacement.
Yeah.
Just think about a surfer for a second. They don't try to control the ocean.
That would be insane.
It would be absurd. They don't try to stop the waves or force the tide to move their way.
No, they read the conditions. They're noticing what's changing, where the energy is, what the patterns are.
Exactly. They position themselves, they wait for the right wave, and then they ride dynamically. They're relying on balance, on observation, on flow.
The goal isn't control.
It's coordination. They're coordinating their movement with the water. They're responsive, not demanding.
This shift is it's crucial. because it takes you from this fixed, brittle posture to one that's fluid and resilient.
And when we talk about real-life application, I mean, especially for big decisions like a career pivot, the difference is night and day.
Right. Most people plan their careers like a ladder. Step 1, then step 2, then step 3. All get title X, then title Y, according to a schedule I set 5 years ago.
And what happens when the economy shifts or that job title you thought you wanted turns out to be just soul-crushing?
The whole ladder feels broken, you feel like a failure, but the sources highlight that the most fulfilled people, they treat their careers more like waves.
They're attuned to the system, not the rigid plan. They notice patterns emerging, both inside themselves and in the world around them.
So internally, they might notice, hey, I am always energized when I'm solving a big, messy problem, but I am totally drained by just maintaining the status quo.
Or externally, everywhere I look, people are complaining about unnecessary meetings and a lack of clarity in their work.
They use this energy data and this pattern spotting to position themselves for the next wave. Maybe they realize their strength isn't being a technical expert, but a process expert, a mess cleaner.
And that data point lets them switch fluidly from, say, consulting to product ops when a company's internal systems are breaking down, because that's where their energy and the market's need suddenly intersect.
They stop obsessing over some singular fixed purpose, and they just stay tuned in to where they are most useful and most energized.
And this whole mindset shift from control to coordination, it actually translates into concrete practical moves, alternatives to setting those rigid, anxiety-inducing goals.
Okay, so what are they?
The first one is pattern spotting. So instead of rigidly sticking to a plan you made months ago, you dedicate real time to asking, what's emerging in my life right now? Is there a subtle signal, a request, a fascination, a recurring conflict that I've been ignoring?
So it changes the focus from just external checklists to gathering your own internal and environmental data. It's about recognizing the current of the water you're in.
Exactly. Then there's energy mapping, which we're going to cover in more detail later, but fundamentally it just means actively tracking what gives you energy and what drains it.
You start treating energy like a finite currency that needs to be budgeted and defended, not just assumed.
The next one is low-stakes surfing. And this is the practical antidote to analysis paralysis, which the machine model just loved to create because the stakes feel so high.
So you start waiting for perfect clarity,
Which never comes in a complex system.
and instead you just commit to testing something, a new project, a new connection, a new environment. But the key is you keep the stakes low enough that failure doesn't mean disaster.
You gather data by moving, not by standing still and analyzing. A complex system only reveals its possibilities through interaction.
Right. If you want to know if you like coding, you don't sign up for a 6-month boot camp. You try coding for 1 hour a day for 2 weeks.
Exactly. Movement generates feedback, and that feedback is what generates clarity.
Okay, and what's the last one?
The last one is a necessary but often ignored move. Exit lose. If something, a project, a toxic relationship, a dead-end commitment, feels dead, heavy, or stale,
You have to consciously stop it.
you create a clean exit. You let that wave pass. Instead of desperately trying to paddle through sludge that's just draining all of your vitality, it's about acknowledging the cost of keeping momentum in the wrong direction.
The core insight here, the real aha moment, is that the goal isn't to force the chaos out, it's to learn to dance with it.
Right. When you stop forcing life to fit into your logical spreadsheet, it becomes infinitely more livable. You're not building a fixed machine. You're learning to coordinate with a dynamic system that is always, always moving.
That foundational shift from machine to ocean is huge, but Rishi's insights get even more granular when he introduces the concept of our internal operating system. This is where, evolutionary psychology meets systems thinking.
And it is a groundbreaking realization. The idea that your brain is not one unitary you.
No.
It is absolutely crucial to realize you are not one person, but a committee. A committee of 7 competing actors, or subcells.
And each actor is a distinct module of the brain, optimized for ancient survival.
And they take turns controlling your behavior based on environmental cues. The challenge, as we said at the top, is the mismatch.
The actors were designed for a context of small tribes, simple food, clear roles, and, imminent physical danger.
But modernity delivers instant, infinite, hyperpalatable food, abstract threats, constant competition for status, and algorithmic manipulation. It's just a perfect setup for behavioral misfire.
So let's dive deep into this committee. Let's meet the actors.
We can start with the 3 that create the most immediate stress for people, beginning with the night watchman.
Okay.
This is your core threat detector. It lives mostly in the amygdala. Its purpose is non-negotiable, keep you alive by scanning the environment for threats, 24/7.
In the savannah, that was essential. But in modernity, its misfires show up as what? Crippling anxiety.
Crippling baseline anxiety, the need to doom scroll through negative news, catastrophizing every minor social interaction, insomnia, the urge to overreact to every vague text message.
And what activates it?
It's activated by negative news cycles, angry-sounding emails, financial uncertainty, and, most powerfully of all, social rejection.
So how do you regulate it? How do you calm the night watchman down?
You need to provide what Rishi calls the safety protocol. And because the watchman is so literal and primitive, you have to provide physical, concrete safety signals.
Abstract reassurance doesn't work.
It doesn't work. You have to control your information diet. So, no news before 11 a.m., none after 7 p.m. That prevents the constant threat priming that keeps the watchman permanently on high alert.
But the most powerful techniques are often physical and environmental, right?
That's right. You need to create physical safety signals. Warm, dim lighting, predictable routines, tidy, defined spaces, and slow, deliberate movements.
You're literally sending cues to your ancient brain that you are not, in fact, being chased by a predator.
Exactly. And for an emergency, when the panic is rising, the sources recommend a specific technique, the emergency grounding protocol. First, you engage your parasympathetic nervous system with what's called the physiological sigh. 2 rapid inhales through the nose, followed by 1 long, slow, full exhale through the mouth.
I've heard of that.
It works. Then you use your senses to anchor yourself in the present. Name 5 objects you can see, 2 textures you can touch, and 1 sound you can hear.
And that pulls your mind out of the abstract threat narrative and back into the concrete safety of the present moment.
Precisely.
Okay, next up is the actor that I think drives most of the misery and comparison in modern life. The go-getter.
Ah, the go-getter. The status competitor. Its purpose was simple. Improve your rank in the tribe, which secured you better access to resources and mates.
Oh, absolutely. Its modern misfires are just endemic to the professional class.
Oh, absolutely. Comparison addiction, prestige anxiety, compulsive achievement, often way past the point of exhaustion, and that persistent nagging feeling of imposter syndrome.
And it's activated by things like LinkedIn, seeing the curated achievements of your peers, not being acknowledged publicly for your work.
All of it. The regulation strategy here is all about shrinking your comparison universe. You have to consciously shift your focus.
So stop comparing yourself to random influencers or billionaires.
Or fictionalized versions of success. You should only compare yourself to your past self, your future self, or maybe your closest 3 to 5 peers who are actually playing the same game you are. Everything else is just noise.
The sources call for a genuine status detox.
Yes. Unfollow the aspirational fitness models, the hyperachievers, anyone whose feed generates shame. Replace them with local peers, mentors, educators.
And that recalibrates your social radar.
It does. And it shifts your focus from chasing dominance, which is about being feared or envied, to building prestige, which is being genuinely admired for your competence and your contribution.
And prestige is a much more stable and internally rewarding form of status.
Much more.
Okay, now for the third familiar actor, the team player, which handles our belonging circuit.
The team player is optimized to keep you firmly within the tribe, ensuring your safety through numbers. A lone human on the savannah was a dead human.
And its modern misfires are profound, chasing likes and validation, experiencing deep loneliness despite having hundreds of digital friends.
Chronic FOMO, relentless over-agreeableness, just to avoid social rejection, which the team player perceives, literally, as a death threat.
So what's the regulation strategy for this one?
Quality over quantity. You have to replace digital bonding with physical bonding. The source material is very clear on this. 30 seconds of sustained eye contact or deep conversation beats 100 likes. 1 real phone call beats 50 texts.
Because digital connection is often transactional. It satisfies a different actor, the controller, but not the team player.
Exactly. The team player craves physical co-regulation and those ancient safety signals.
So you have to proactively build a personal tribe.
Through weekly rituals, same people, same place, same time. That consistency signals safety and commitment to the team player far more effectively than intense but sporadic social bursts.
And to earn your spot, you need to become indispensable.
Right. Bring snacks, offer your specialized skills, actively connect people. People bond to those who contribute, fulfilling that ancient need for reciprocal safety and resource sharing.
Now, you mentioned there were 4 other actors. These are the ones that cause more subtle forms of modern sabotage. Let's start with the one that dictates how we handle resources and information.
Right. That would be the controller.
The controller.
This is the resource tracker. Its function is purely transactional. Keep score, track resource scarcity, ensure fairness, and manage all the input-output balances.
In ancient times, this meant tracking who owes you a favor or how many berries you gathered versus how many you ate.
And in modernity, the controller misfires through intense, persistent financial anxiety. Even when you're financially secure, it generates a scarcity mindset, making people hoard opportunities or information.
And it's the actor that gets addicted to digital connection.
Yes, because it views social media as a perpetual resource exchange, a constant flow of information as input and likes as output. And it's never satisfied because the score is infinite.
So regulation here is about defining what? Enough.
Exactly. Defining enough. Instead of tracking transactions, you track sufficiency. You set specific boundaries. I will review my finances once a week, and once I hit my sufficiency metric, I stop tracking.
And for the digital connection piece.
You have to replace that transactional checking with dedicated relational time, which forces the team player to take the lead instead of the controller.
Okay, the next actor is probably the one responsible for shiny object syndrome.
The navigator.
The one that plagues entrepreneurs and perpetual students.
The navigator is the exploration module. Its purpose is to seek novelty, map new territory, and plan for the future. It's the essential driver of curiosity and progress. It's what pushes you over the horizon.
But when modernity offers infinite horizons via the internet, the navigator it turns into the ultimate paralyzer.
Right. Its misfire is endless research, planning paralysis, starting 50 projects and finishing none, and constantly believing the solution lies in the next book or the next course.
So it's always planning, never executing.
Because execution ends the possibility of infinite novelty. The regulation requires time-boxing novelty. You have to satisfy the navigator's need for exploration by designating specific, limited time blocks for research.
And outside of those blocks.
You commit to execution even if it's imperfect. You force the navigator to switch from exploration mode to exploitation mode using the current map, rather than constantly seeking a new one.
Then we have the storyteller, the internal narrator that gives meaning to our experience.
The storyteller is the meaning maker. Its purpose is to create coherent narratives that predict and explain the environment. It's essential for our identity.
And the modern misfire is the creation of these self-limiting toxic narratives, often triggered by the night watchman or the go-getter.
This leads to intense shame spirals. I'm fundamentally a fraud. I'm not cut out for this. Or chronic self-sabotage, where the storyteller reinforces a narrative of inadequacy every time a setback happens.
So how do you regulate that?
It requires intentional narrative editing. You have to consciously identify the negative, self-limiting scripts like, I always mess up big opportunities, and replace them with actual, neutral descriptions of events.
And then follow that with a growth-oriented narrative.
Exactly. That mistake was costly, but it taught me X, and I am committed to integrating that learning. The storyteller needs data, but it also needs an editor.
Finally, the last actor, the one that causes so much friction in high-stakes environments.
The guardian.
The inner protector.
Its role is to safeguard the vulnerable, intimate, authentic core self from social pain, rejection, or exposure. It's what creates our emotional armor.
And the modern misfire is intense perfectionism, procrastination driven by fear of failure.
Which would expose the vulnerable self.
And deep emotional guarding, which prevents real intimacy and connection. The guardian interprets all vulnerability as weakness, and so it locks down all potential points of attack.
The path to regulating the guardian is practicing small, intentional acts of vulnerability, often in safe, ritualized environments, like a trusted weekly peer group.
You have to show the guardian, through low-stakes exposure, that sharing your truth, a mistake, a fear, a confusion, does not result in social death.
Right. Integration, not protection, becomes the new goal.
Understanding these 7 actors really helps us realize our constant behavioral struggles aren't moral failings. They're just the output of an ancient, complex system misfiring in a hostile, hyper-stimulating environment.
And this brings us directly to why managing time is outdated and why energy is the new economy for high-functioning people.
Right. Chapter 3 of the sources hits us with this foundational truth. Energy is greater than time. We all talk about time management like we're factory owners, scheduling tasks minute by minute.
But Rishi argues that you don't actually run out of time, you run out of energy.
And that's a critical distinction.
It's huge because time is a human construct. It's linear, it's abundant, but energy is fundamentally biological. It's nonlinear and it's lumpy.
So 1 hour exhausted, distracted, and low on glucose does not equal 1 hour focused, energized, and sharp.
Not even close. Wiser people don't schedule their days by the clock. They schedule their days by their internal energy curve, that wave pattern of alertness, sharp focus, necessary crash, and reflective calm.
And the non-obvious insight here is that energy is data. Every single activity, a task, a meeting, a conversation with a specific person, it either charges you, drains you, or numbs you.
And knowing which is where you gain all your power, you stop operating on the autopilot dictated by your calendar, and you start operating based on your personal physics.
Let's talk about the real-life example of this because I think it's so common. The wrong job that wasn't.
Yes. This successful woman, she thought she hated her high-level corporate job entirely. She was planning this massive career switch because she felt constantly depleted.
But after conducting an energy audit, she realized the truth was much more nuanced.
Right. She realized she loved client calls and live presentations. They energized her. She would lose track of time doing them.
But what drained her was writing these long strategy decks, doing solo deep dives into spreadsheets, and endless internal administrative meetings.
So it wasn't the company or the mission she hated. It was the activities that comprised, 60% of her time.
She didn't need a new job. She just needed a new energy alignment.
Exactly. By presenting her findings to her manager, she was able to shift her role within the same team. She doubled down on the live sessions and client-facing work and delegated the draining solo data analysis.
And her overall satisfaction just soared because she aligned her tasks with her natural energy curve, even though her title barely changed.
So how do you perform this audit yourself?
Yeah.
The sources detail a really practical 4-step process for doing your own energy audit.
Okay, what's step one?
Step 1, the tracking phase. For 7 consecutive days, you track your energy in 2-hour blocks using just 3 simple labels.
Yeah.
Energized, which is I feel focused, engaged, high flow.
Right.
Drained, which is I feel heavy, resistant, distracted. Or neutral, which is I'm functional but I feel no specific emotion. Often it happens during admin work.
And the discipline of just tracking provides that objective distance from your subjective mood.
It does. Step 2, noticing the triggers. You go back and you analyze the data. What were you doing exactly? Who were you with? What time of day did those high energy spikes reliably happen? What environment were you in?
So you're connecting the output your energy to the input, which is the context.
Precisely. Step 3, creating the energy balance sheet. You formally create 2 columns. The top 5 activities that recharge you versus the top 5 activities that drain you.
And you have to be specific here. Don't just write meetings.
No. Right? 1.1 coaching sessions recharge versus all-hands status update meetings drain. This gives you your personalized energy profile.
And then step 4, designing your architecture.
Finally, you redesign your calendar. You take your top 3 energizers and you make them non-negotiable appointments. You treat them with the same respect as a client meeting.
And then you identify your top 3 drainers and you consciously apply the 3 Ds, delegate them, batch them into specific windows of low energy time, or just quit them entirely.
If your calendar ignores your energy, your life will inevitably ignore your potential.
And this leads us right into chapter 5, which exposes a really deep trap of modern life, the metric trap.
The metric trap. Because humans are wired by the go-getter and the controller to optimize whatever is measured.
We end up achieving this hyper-efficiency at living a life that fundamentally exhausts us.
It's a devastating insight. We are actively self-sabotaging based on cultural conditioning. We measure salary instead of fulfillment, social status instead of serenity, output hours instead of internal energy.
Attention consumption instead of connection quality. Superficial growth instead of deep alignment.
And the fundamental problem is that metrics become identity templates. What you choose to measure becomes what you value, and what you value, through constant tracking and optimization, becomes who you are.
So if you constantly check your inbox and reply instantly, your identity becomes someone who is always available.
And if you obsessively track your tasks completed, your identity becomes a machine of output.
We should probably look closer at the productivity spiral example here because it shows just how insidious this trap can be.
Yes. A successful consultant, totally driven by her go-getter, started measuring every 15-minute block of her day using an advanced time-blocking app. Her self-worth became explicitly tied to task completion and efficiency metrics.
The system worked great.
Yeah.
Until life intervened.
Right. A family emergency, a sustained sickness, even just an emotional surge she couldn't account for would disrupt the perfect timeline. And she didn't just feel unproductive, she spiraled.
She felt like a profound personal and professional failure.
Because her self-worth metric, 100% completion of 15-minute blocks, was just unattainable under real-world conditions.
So her solution was a really radical shift in her tracking.
She deleted the tracking app, moved away from performance metrics entirely. Instead, she switched to journaling her energy levels and tracking metrics of subjective joy, connection quality, and presence.
And the sources noted that her objective task productivity dropped by about 10%, but her reported happiness and fulfillment doubled immediately.
So this gives us the framework to audit your metrics. You have to spend time asking, what metrics do I measure regularly? Is it my income, my weight, my response time?
And what does each metric silently reward? Speed over depth, visible output over internal integrity, growth over necessary rest.
And most importantly, what am I neglecting because I don't measure it? My emotional depth, the quality of my relationships, my recovery time.
The actionable solution is to implement this crucial shift, tracking countermetrics for a week.
Right. So instead of tracking steps or tasks completed, you track, did I feel proud of how I spent my attention today, or did I move at the pace of my body, not the pace of my calendar?
The insight is immutable. What you track is what you train. If your life feels off, don't just work harder, check your dashboard.
The anxiety of modernity isn't just about productivity, though. It's about existential pressure. And so much of that pressure is tied up in the word purpose.
Right. And Rishi argues that purpose as a concept is the wrong word entirely. It creates this crushing, often paralyzing pressure.
It creates the anxiety that there's a single correct answer, a life mission you have to find, or else you're living inauthentically. And that fixed concept of purpose traps people in endless searching.
So the sources offer a much healthier systems-based framing. Purpose isn't found, it's formed.
It emerges from usefulness, from energy, and from demand. It's an emergent property of action. It's a verb, not a noun.
So purpose emerges when something checks 3 boxes at the same time. Usefulness.
Yeah.
It genuinely helps someone else or solves a real problem.
Energy. If you lose track of time doing it, it satisfies your energy map. And demand. Others keep asking you to do more of it, which signals market or social validation.
So instead of engaging in this stressful, abstract hunt, you just shift your focus. Instead of asking, what's my grand, singular purpose, you ask,
where am I being pulled into service in ways that energize me?
The accidental mentor example illustrates this perfectly.
Yes. Imagine you have a friend who's struggling with a career pivot. You spend a casual evening helping them structure their resume, using a skill you think is just mundane. They succeed wildly.
Then they refer a colleague to you. And then suddenly you realize you're the go-to person for this specific high-stakes career advice.
You didn't plan to be a career mentor. The path chose you through action, results, and positive feedback from the system. You followed your energy, others saw its usefulness, and the demand showed up.
And that sense of emergent purpose is powerful, and it's entirely free of the typical anxiety.
Shifting from the hunt for purpose, let's look at how Rishi reframes burnout. This is so critical for high achievers who often mistake rest for recovery.
Because burnout isn't simply about overwork or long hours.
That is the widespread and dangerous myth. Burnout often shows up even when you take time off, and sustained rest, paradoxically, doesn't solve it. Because burnout is less about the volume of work and more about a sustained state of emotional starvation. It's caused by 6 core factors: meaninglessness, unclear progress, misaligned values, powerlessness, emotional neglect, and disconnection.
So you can work 80 hours on a meaningful project with autonomy and feel energized.
And you can work 35 hours in a toxic, pointless bureaucracy with zero control and feel dead inside. Burnout is emotional starvation. It shows up as depersonalization, emotional numbness, and a sense of futility that a weekend of sleep just cannot fix.
So the solution isn't always a vacation. It's restoring meaning and agency.
Right. We need to audit our emotional fuel tank. Where's the leak coming from? Is it powerlessness? Then you have to inject agency by making small, clear decisions you control. Is it meaninglessness? You must redefine who benefits from your work.
What would break if you stopped showing up?
Exactly. You need to add relational nutrients, co-work, debrief, celebrate small wins, actively seek gratitude. It's about changing the story and the structure of your work, not just the schedule.
And this chase for meaning also requires us to tackle the happiness trap head on.
Yes. Most people assume the goal of life is to feel good and comfortable all the time, and the sources state that this belief guarantees chronic dissatisfaction. Happiness is a side effect of alignment and contribution, not a destination you can schedule.
What's not obvious is that growth feels like discomfort.
It does. When you are learning a new skill, navigating complexity, or doing deep, challenging work, you often feel uneasy, frustrated, uncertain, or lost. We're conditioned to think these feelings signal failure or misalignment.
This is a point that needs careful thought, though. How do we differentiate the productive discomfort of growth from the destructive misery of genuine misalignment? Because someone could use this framework to justify staying in a toxic job they hate.
That's the critical differentiation. Productive discomfort, the discomfort of growth, is associated with a sense of meaning, progress, and vitality. It's hard, but you feel alive.
Okay.
Destructive misery, the pain of misalignment, is associated with futility, numbness, and exhaustion. You feel dead inside, even when you're working less.
So if you are struggling but feel vital and purposeful, you are growing. If you are struggling and feel drained and cynical, you are starving emotionally.
Right. Therefore, we must rewire our rewards. Replace the metric of happy with aligned. If something hard is aligned with what matters to you, lean in and accept the accompanying discomfort.
Instead of tracking mood, track vitality. Did you create something new? Did you stretch your capacity? Did you genuinely connect with someone?
And most powerfully, use pain as a signal, not an alarm. Anxiety, for instance, is merely uncertainty you haven't named or defined. You're not supposed to be happy all the time. You're supposed to feel alive.
And aliveness comes from contrast, risk, and depth. The friction where growth happens, not from comfort or numbness.
We've established that willpower fails and rigid goals sabotage us. So what wins?
Systems. Chapter 19 is incredibly direct about this. Nothing changes until the system changes. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall consistently to the level of your environment and your underlying system.
Behavior is the output of the system. It is not the root cause. If your environment is set up for distraction or anxiety or burnout, that system will win every single time, no matter how strongly you motivated yourself in the morning. And conversely, you need to create default paths for right behavior. This is all about removing decision points.
Leave your running shoes and gym clothes by the door.
Pre-schedule deep work blocks in the morning so the decision is already made. Automate payments and scheduling. The system, your subconscious autopilot, becomes your ally.
The sources are so clear on this. Don't waste energy upgrading your goals. Upgrade the architecture that produces your outcomes.
Another crucial system upgrade is replacing pure logic with ritual. Chapter 26 highlights that when logic or willpower fails, use ritual. We often assume we need better arguments to change our behavior.
But we often just need a better rhythm, a physical anchor, a predictable sequence.
Rituals bypass expensive willpower by creating default momentum. They signal to the brain that a mode shift is occurring.
Right. A writer who sets a kettle to boil and starts typing the moment the whistle sounds isn't using willpower. They are using a sequence of conscious actions with purpose.
And that's the difference between routine, which is unconscious repetition like brushing your teeth, and ritual, which is a conscious, sequenced pattern infused with purpose, like the deep breath before replying to an email.
So you need to design these pre-action rituals.
Absolutely. If you want to transition into focused work, implement a 5-minute ritual. Tidy your desk, light a candle, or play a specific song, then take 3 deep breaths.
And that small ritual signals to the navigator and the night watchman that safety and focus time has begun, and the full work session follows automatically.
It leverages momentum rather than motivation. The brain responds to cues much faster than it responds to reasoning.
Finally, let's discuss the critical difference between control and capacity. Chapter 10 notes that control is brittle. It fails the moment life changes.
The economy shifts, your health changes, a surprise wrecks your rigid plan. Capacity, however, is resilient. It's anti-fragile.
Control is trying to make reality obey you, which is exhausting and futile.
Capacity is training yourself so you can handle what reality brings, regardless of the outcome. People obsessed with control collapse when life changes. People focused on capacity adapt, grow, and rebuild with speed.
So to build this capacity muscle, you must first audit your reactions. What situations cause panic or extreme emotional guarding or rigidity?
Those are the signs that you lean too heavily on control in that area. And then you start a capacity rep habit.
A capacity repetition, what's that?
It's intentionally doing something hard you can't control perfectly, forcing your nervous system to adapt to discomfort.
Like what?
Speak off the cuff in a meeting when you haven't prepared. Cold call a client. Try a new, complex activity where you are guaranteed to be a beginner and look foolish.
It's exposure therapy for the Guardian and the Night Watchman, proving to them that uncertainty is survivable.
Exactly. And success must be fundamentally redefined. Instead of asking, did I control the outcome and hit my target? You ask.
Could I expand my ability to handle uncertainty and complexity?
And this mindset shift is how we use breakdowns as invitations, not as interruptions.
Crisis feels like an interruption to the fixed plan, but it's often the only force powerful enough to strip away the illusions. A fake identity, a toxic pursuit, a brittle plan, forcing you to rebuild something real.
Consider the career freefall example we mentioned earlier.
Right. The highly successful executive who, due to a market collapse and a failed venture, lost everything: title, salary, identity. It felt like total failure.
A complete interruption.
Mm-hmm.
But the freefall forced her to confront what truly mattered, not what society measured. Without the pressure of the go-getter or the expectations of her peers, she started writing about the systems that led to the collapse.
And that crisis, that stripped-down honesty, gave her the permission she didn't realize she needed to become someone she actually liked: a writer and systems thinker.
The freefall wasn't the end of her career. It was the invitation to rebuild her foundation on alignment, not external validation. And that ultimately led to her best-selling work.
And this journey of capacity and alignment, it connects so deeply to the identity issues high achievers face, specifically imposter syndrome.
Yes, imposter syndrome, as defined in the sources, isn't about competence. It's about disconnection. It comes from succeeding brilliantly at things that are not aligned with who you are internally.
So when your external life, the Ivy League title, the top firm, the big salary, has outpaced your internal truth and values.
The storyteller and the guardian just scream, fraud. You learned how to perform the role, but you never learned how to truly belong to yourself within that role.
So the solution isn't more confidence, which is external.
It's integration becoming whole, unified, and authentic, rather than just impressive.
Okay, so let's recap the core breakthroughs from Rishi's system. First, life is surfable, not solvable. The goal is coordination, not control.
Right. You stop trying to force the river, and you start learning to read the water and move with the current.
Second, your ancient brain is running Stone Age software. You have to understand the committee of the 7 competing actors, recognize when they misfire, and provide specific physical safety cues.
The night watchman needs tidy rooms and slow breathing. The go-getter needs a status detox, and the controller needs to find sufficiency.
And third, alignment beats discipline. Stop focusing on time, which is linear, and start tracking energy, which is lumpy. What you track is what you train.
So audit your metrics and swap external performance tracking for internal vitality tracking.
For a final actionable step that sort of binds all these systems together, the sources emphasize the power of closing open loops.
Chapter 53. You don't actually need more time in your day. You need fewer unresolved questions, unclear priorities, and unresolved tensions pulling at your mental bandwidth.
Ambiguity is the most expensive thing you buy. It forces the navigator to keep standing and the night watchman to stay vigilant. And this is why practicing the one-touch decision rule is so potent.
The one-touch rule means that when a piece of information or a decision comes across your desk, an email, a suggestion, you only touch it once.
You either resolve it immediately, delegate it with clear instructions, or schedule a specific block of time for resolution and then file it away.
You decide once and you move on. You act like you're flying out tomorrow and must resolve everything incomplete today. Resolution is power.
And the ultimate insight that wraps this entire journey together is this: the best lives aren't achieved through grinding. They're lived through depth and presence.
The goal isn't to be happy, which is fragile and fleeting. It's to feel alive.
And aliveness comes from accepting contrast, taking calculated risks, and engaging deeply with your own system, not from comfort or numbness.
Which brings us to a final provocative thought for you to chew on. Remember the difference between a plan and a direction.
From Chapter 75.
Right. Rigid plans shatter in a fluid world. They create anxiety because they assume a fixed future. But a direction, a compass heading like vitality, autonomy, or deep connection, that stays true. Through every storm and pivot, it allows you to dynamically coordinate your life.
You don't need a new life, you need new defaults. Stop asking for permission. Start designing a life architecture that makes progress inevitable. The ocean doesn't care about your fixed plans.
It only cares about your capacity to read the wave. So go, test, adjust, and keep paddling back out. You were never broken. You were just waiting to learn how to surf the system.